Hello everybody, this is Christian back from Blue vs. Orange TCG, here with a very special guest. Say hello, special guest.
Hello, special guest.
That's right, our special guest, as he proudly proclaimed, is Tichards. I mean, Richard.
Did you write Tichards in the script?
No, I wrote Tichards in OBS, and so I'm looking at that, and don't worry, Jumpy will appreciate that. It's not Tichards, it's Richard Wyatt.
It's true. It is Richard Wyatt. The Tichards thing is our beloved Blue vs. Orange host here has a terrible tendency to fat finger his text messages.
It's true.
And that is one of the things that came out of his fat fingering.
Yeah, that is a good old canty tube at your finest right there.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Man, there's a lot of inside jokes for being inside of a minute in this podcast so far.
I know, there's a lot of inside jokes. So why are we here for this podcast, Richard? Let me explain real quick, audience. So it's, let's see, at the time of recording, it's 5 days? Yeah, 5 days to the kickoff of the Season 5 ATP-5 one-day event. That'll pretty much, well, I guess the Season 4 came into a close on Halloween, because that was the last, that was when the finals was for the last event, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You would know.
Yeah.
You were in it.
I was in it. Well, we're gonna talk about that, but we just wanted to do a recap, a Season 4 recap about the tournaments that came about, what the first place finishers was, and just really talk about the players and the finishes that they received. We had I was looking back at a lot of these tournaments, Richard, and I'm not sure if you noticed it, but it was really cool to see there was a lot of first time champions from the Discord finishing these events. Yeah, I thought that was super, super cool. And so I really wanted to talk about that, really give them, really celebrate their victory, and just kind of give their appreciation and congratulations for finishing so well in the Season 4 event. But before we even get into those deck lists and those tournaments, we gotta talk about a special someone. It's not Tichards, it's Richard Wyatt again. Big shocker, as you can see on screen. Richard, what did you win in Season 4?
Well, I took down the season championship and got an amazing playmat to go with it. That I cannot wait to get.
I'm so jealous of that playmat. You have no idea.
It's so awesome. I have it on screen right now.
I have it on screen right now.
Oh, it's so cool. Merc B's already one of my favorite cards ever that we've ever made. Like, I've been recorded multiple instances saying that ATP-2 Soundwave is probably my favorite card we've done. I think my second card is probably Merc B. So
Merc B's so cool. He's so cool. And this playmat, like the Energon cubes, like kind of getting thrown out into you, and the color scheme is just like everything about it is fantastic. I'm abhorrently jealous, and that I couldn't finish. But you know what? Congratulations, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I believe the kids would call it a banger. I think.
I guess so.
The playmat, yeah.
I guess
it's a banger. I'm not as hip with the lingo as everybody else, but
I'm not either. You know, for 24 years old, I'm not in tune with my generation whatsoever. I can't even. That's as far as I know, actually.
That's pretty good.
So what does it take to win a season championship, Richard? Real quick, I don't think it's because we had a season championship point system. Last season. It's
the same.
It's the same thing.
It was the same point system. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a little bit less talked about this season, but we did have a winner.
So I think the biggest thing for taking down a season as opposed to just an individual tournament is the 3 C's, which would be consistency, consistency, consistency.
Yeah.
That would be how I'd term it. I didn't actually win a single event. I did not take first place in a single event in this season. But what I did manage to do was top 8 every single event and move past the quarterfinals in a number of them.
You finished well. Consistent finish.
I just finish well and try to do it in every single event. What's cool for me is that I got to do it playing like an absolute swath of different decks, which is really fun, right? Like, so it's really fun to specialize on a deck, given certain formats as well. But the metagame for like the ATP seasons is pretty volatile, I think, from tournament to tournament because the tournaments last so long.
Yeah, for sure.
So the format is extremely undiscovered at the early parts of the season, right? Like post-release of the whatever the set was that kicks off the season, and then through each month, the community collectively learns a ton. It's not just like, oh, this deck won, like it'll be the best deck next event. Oftentimes, I actually would go so far as to say that I think we see from, let's say that like month 1 was a T1 event and month 2 is a T1 event as well. It doesn't necessarily happen that way all the time, but just for hypothetical stake.
It happened this season.
It did. I think that you would regularly see, the first event go a specific way, have a deck win, and I think you would see the next event not be dominated by that deck, right? Like, I think you would immediately see a lot of people try and build decks that beat that deck.
Yeah.
I think you would. So what I think you see is like, there's oftentimes in metagames that are more condensed, these kind of intermediate steps, right? Where like, let's say one tournament is won by a certain type of deck or a certain deck, and the next tournament is that deck being refined, and then the next tournament is decks that beat that deck, and then those getting refined, and then so on and so forth, right? And so, but I do not think that is the way that a lot of these seasons have gone. I think a lot of the seasons have gone the way of a deck has done well. You see decks that try to beat that deck, or metagame that deck, or edit their game plan proactively to counteract what's going on that was really well done in the first place. And then I think you see, oftentimes, we also see a lot of people bring a lot of kind of out of the box stuff.
Yeah.
As well.
Tons of stuff like that.
But that's partially just being a smaller community, I think. I don't think that has anything to do with the condensed metagame or anything like that.
Yeah. So well, I think you see that a lot more early on. Like early on and late in the season, you'll see a lot more out of the box stuff than in the middle, in my opinion. At least from what I've seen too from these like seasonal events. Just because people are really excited to try new stuff in the beginning. Then like metagame kind of gets a little bit more consistent in the middle, and then people before the new set drops want to try out the things that they didn't get a chance to try. Is usually how I would see these things tend to fall in line in terms of like people wanting to play kind of these out of box things. But there's also just players that naturally just want to do that every tournament anyway, right? Because there's a lot.
100%.
There's just a number of different ways as a competitive player in a competitive community to enjoy to scratch your competitive itch, right? There's a lot of different ways, and you see that with the player base here for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even in formats where the gameplay isn't great, which I would not classify this last one as, by the way. I just meant just in general, like looking back. For me, the way I get the most fun out of the game is largely deck building anyway.
Yeah, same.
Which I can do even in formats that don't have incredible gameplay. Whereas, like, some people drive off of great games, so when a format is great, they just play all the time. And then when a format's not as good, they play kind of like what they believe their minimum obligation is to whatever the game, right? And so sometimes you'll see people wax and wane, where other types will be kind of like a flat level of enjoyment. And even still, sometimes people really fluctuate to specific types of decks. So if metagames have like certain types of decks that it's slanted toward, those are the times they'll be playing and more active, whether it's good gameplay or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we went on a bit of a tirade there, just a little bit at the end. But just to recap again, congratulations, Richard Wyatt, for winning the Season 4 Player Championship. And do you expect? Are you going to try your hardest this season for Season 5 to try to be a back-to-back champion?
I mean, so I always try to do well. I'm never going into an event thinking I'm going to do poorly. None of the month-longs. I've done it in a couple of the past one days. I've brought some real stinkers.
All overwhelming advantage decks, really.
Almost all overwhelming advantage decks. Card's really fun. It's not good. And I think that this season I will continue to try to do well because I care about doing well, and I think it's fun to try and challenge an existing metagame and to, be a part of constructing pillars of that metagame and discovering what's important within it. I think that helps me as part of the design team and development team as well to flesh out for the future. Right, being really tapped in, I think, is really important, which is part of why I do what I do and why I watch as many games as I watch. Because keeping things dynamic in a healthy way is really important. The motivation is not to get back-to-back championships. That'd be great, but it would be a byproduct.
So you don't really want to be a Seto Kaiba in the Transformers TCG community. You just want to play and do well, and just kind of go out from there.
Yeah, I have no desire to be Kaiba at all. That's not me. That's not my bag.
Oh god, I'm sorry. I laugh every time I say the name Seto Kaiba because I feel like there's definitely some people in the community that can be classified as the Seto Kaiba types that just wanna play and try to win every tournament as they can, which is great, right?
I think it's funny that the psychographics for Yu-Gi-Oh, which is I know where your competitive background comes from, TCG wise, largely point to the anime characters, whereas Magic, which is where my background really comes from, the design team over which is the Coast has these psychographics they talk about, which are basically these broad umbrellas that they paint their consumers and their players into. So the big ones, I'm not going to go too deep in this, but the big ones are Timmy, Johnny, Spike, and then I think there's an unofficial fourth one called Vorthos. I promise it's
okay.
Yeah. So Timmy likes to plays the game for a thrill. He likes to do big things. He likes to play Overlord and hit star cards. It's a very Timmy feeling.
Hit for 25 on an aggro deck.
Hit for 25 on an aggro deck, right? So Dinobots is somewhat of a Timmy deck. And by the way, none of these are wrong ways to enjoy the game. They're just different ways to do it.
Yeah.
Johnny loves to build engines in the game, right? So think like Johnny decks are often combo decks. So things like Daring Escape would often appeal to Johnny's, even Overwhelming Advantage to a certain degree, right? Or like they like to feel like they're doing a lot of things, right? So for example, Smurf often tries to build Johnny decks. I would describe Smurf as a Johnny Spike hybrid.
Sure.
Spike is the guy is the Kaiba. He is there to win. Doesn't really care about what he's playing. Doesn't really care about what his opponents are playing. He wants to play the best stuff all the time. That's where he's at. Even if he doesn't especially like the deck, those are the types of players that will absolutely. They're the ones that we say we have to protect from themselves almost, right? So if you give players cards that incentivize them to play things they don't like because it makes them win, they will do it. That's what the Spikes do. They will actively put away fun to win.
Sure.
And then Vorthos is a person who's in it for the lore. For the skin of it all.
Yeah.
Right.
I see.
They're often people who are really into the IP and want to build teams that are thematic, and that's cool for most of the other players as well, right? None of these psychographics is mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
They often kind of dip into other ones, but they have a main one that they subscribe to.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can see that a lot in the TFTCG, that's for sure. But anyway. We should probably move on to the actual tournament series for Season 4, starting off with... let me switch this up here.
The release, right?
Yeah, the release. So this is technically a Season 3 event, point-wise.
It is.
But this was the first event that ATP-4 was legal, and I did want to include it anyway because it does shape the ATP-4 format / season as a whole. In this one, the event was pretty much the day of Galvatron, because there was 4 Galvatrons in top 8 or so.
There were so many heralds. There were so many heralds in top 8.
There's a lot of heralds. It was pretty ridiculous. I played to branch out what we're talking about here. The player that did win this event with this heralds deck list that I see before you was in fact me, Christian Young. So I see you laughing there.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I know this is a full con event, so I don't know if you mentioned that or not. But
this is a full con event. Yeah, it started off with full con.
You can tell because there's a mission briefing in that deck list.
Yeah, and you'd say I was wrong, and I didn't play more than one mission briefing, and I'd agree.
I could not believe you were only playing one, and I could not believe you were playing 2 energy transfer. That felt like so many energy transfer to me.
Yeah, well, at the time, everyone was including me, was super big on the idea of energy transfer, right? And you kind of see this later on too, with these legend decks. Everyone was super hyped about the idea of transferring over 7 damage, and now you have a full health legend. But then it was pretty inconsistent most of the time. I energy transferred twice, I believe, and it was pretty good. But 2 was definitely too many. I started them out every game. definitely.
Yeah. I mean, okay, it's not as if there are not times where the energy transfer line is really good, right? There absolutely are the times where it's very good, but people are disincentivized from attacking your legend mode characters early anyway, so the other guys on your team often have a bunch of damage on them, which means you're energy transferring for like 4 or 3, and is that really worth spending your action on?
Yeah.
Right?
It's true, especially in an aggro deck.
I think,
you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the whole ATP-4 format, as you talked about it, is shaped by this concept of efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
I think is really important in ATP-4 metagames. Like decks that win are decks that like they act efficiently on their turn.
Yeah.
Every turn.
Yeah, I would say so. One thing I do want to take mention of this Herald's list that I think what's part of me actually wanting to play the 2 energy transfers, and something that I think future you see a drop in Heralds as like a little bit of a spoiler for the rest of the season, except for the very end where they had a top 8. But I think something that the other Heralds list didn't incorporate that mine did that I think is actually kind of key for the deck is the 2 withdrawal protocol and the 2 stealthiness. So those 4 cards that enable stealth is actually like super key for the deck, because one of the best ways to blow Heralds out is to have them go first, go into Megatron, don't kill it, and now they have to swing with their other guys, and you just kill Cyclonus and Scourge, and now you just have Megatron left, and it's a really bad spot to come back from. It's hard, it's harsh, but having those stealth cards is really important for that reason, to make it so that if you swing with Scourge, you can at least keep him stealth and they have to go into Megatron again. It's a great tempo play, if anything, and it's something that Herald decks, I think, especially going into ATP-5, because I think Herald's is still a fantastic deck, if not even better. Going into ATP-5 is something that they need to abuse as well.
I think so. I mean, I think Scourge is going to be relevant by himself for a long time. So, and once you're playing one Herald, it makes sense to maybe try and incorporate some others because they work together. So, I think so too. And also, I think it's really important. It's really interesting you brought up withdrawal protocol and stealthiness. I think this is the season of Brave and Stealth.
Oh yeah,
as ATP-4. Like it has been important. I think going back as far as maybe, honestly, Wave 5. You start to see Brave and Stealth like creep into the metagame like here and there. And I think that since then has only gone up in importance, right? We go back to ATP2 and you see like the Soundwave Jazz decks that were big on like they're like 3-point position of bravery, right? Like crazy stuff like that. You'll see, and then with Release ATP4 you have Withdrawal Protocol giving stealth, and you have a Ghost Scream, who when he arises has hard stealth on the character, right? So like they're naturally occurring in more places that are more relevant, and they're tied to other themes that are really powerful in the metagame. So I think like Spy Satellite Uplink, never leave home without it.
Yeah, absolutely, and you see that like every deck pretty much mainboards the Spy Satellite Uplink now, if not sideboards it. Shout out to that one of Spotlights in my sideboard that actually I know in one game, and it was awesome. It was so good one game. It was ridiculous. I think
Spotlights is just better than people think it is. The fact that it works kind of as a blanket. It's not just for the guy it's on. That like while it's on someone, their whole team can't use is really good.
People forgot that when I played it, and they're like, "Well, you don't have Spy Satellite." I'm like, Spotlights, just does it.
It turns it off. Just turns it off.
Yeah. So that was the ATP-4 release event, won by Christian Young again.
I didn't play in this event. So you mentioned it counted for ATP for season 3. Pardon me. It was the last event in season 3. It was kind of what locked up your championship in that season. Congratulations on that again.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get a chance to play in the release event. I was actually pretty heartbroken about it, but I was out of town at the time. So it interfered with my ability to play, which was a huge bummer. What's hilarious is I was planning on taking Heralds.
Were you really? Oh man.
So I would have been one of many. Well, like it was already like 4 of top 8 was Herald, I think, in the first event. So I would have been a 5th one trying to compete for that. So
one of the Heralds was an OA list with Merkby and
stuff. Oh yeah.
Which was sweet.
Oh, that deck looks hot.
It was pretty hot. So to kind of piggyback what Richard said, we're also going to be going over the tournament deck list that the first place finisher deck list. Also, Richard's Decklist I played for the season in honor of him being the season champion, and kind of seeing where he plays as well to get a feel for the tournaments and the metagames as well. So
you want to move into the first season 4 event?
Yep, we're gonna go over to that right now. So this was one. So this is a full count event, and this is one by my. You're laughing already. This was won by my boys Brokebox from Minnesota. New player from the game as well. He started playing when ATP-3 dropped. He came.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and that was his first time playing the game ever. So he came up to me, telling me he was new to the game from Minnesota. We played some games, told him what's up, and he came to this event, and we were. And I remember the conversation we were having, because he said he really wanted to play Quake, because he never got a chance to play Quake in any event, and he always heard stories about Quake. I'm like, do you want to play Quake? He's like, yeah, I want to play Quake, and I handed him a Quake list, and he took it all the way, and I'm absolutely impressed, because like Quake is the big bad. Everyone knows him. He's the scumbag of scumbag decks, but at the same time, you have to give credit to Quake at least requiring like thought to play, right? Like I would not categorize as a mindless aggro deck whatsoever.
No, far from mindless. And here's the other thing too, right? So like Quake hasn't done as well in the ATP world for a number of reasons. One, people were not as willing to play it as maybe they should have because of its kind of like big bad reputation,
nefarious status.
2, it has 2 really bad matchups. Like really, really bad matchups. It is a bad matchup into ATP Minosaur with High Speed Chase.
So bad.
And it's almost unwinnable. And then it has an almost unwinnable matchup into Dinobots.
Yeah, that one's tough too. That one's easier than Minosaur, but that one's way harder. You have to plan for that.
Yeah.
Matchup.
Yeah, you have to have like multiple cards in your sideboard ready for that matchup, right? Because and you have to play as if that deck has direct damage in it because of the way trample works, right? Kind of invalidating your heads.
It does.
So yeah, but those 2 matchups are really bad, and they were nowhere to be seen in this tournament.
Yeah, they weren't. Yeah, no Dinobots, no Minosaur.
So Quake was an incredible call. And also, I mean, like, it's not, you look at this deck list, right? It is not as though there are a ton of things from ATP-4 that like went into this deck list, right? I think you see 1 Absorption Core main, 1 in the side, and I think that is literally it for ATP-4 cards. I think everything else is, honestly, it might even be Wave 5 and before.
Yeah, a Wave 5. There's 26 Wave 5 cards in this list. And then
I guess there are 2
cards.
ATP-2 cards. Yeah.
2 ATP-2 and 2 ATP-4. That's it.
You have 2 Take by Surprise in the sideboard. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, like this deck list is pretty stock, and it looks really good. Even just the incidental blues are really effective because they're attached to Pierce or attached to Black Pips, which the deck really cares about a lot. Scoundrel's Blaster is maybe the one thing that defines ATP Quake deck list versus outside of it, because you have to have access to Pierce that isn't based on Black Pips in your deck list. Because of the existence of Jazz. I think that, I just think it was a really good call for the event, especially when people were so ready to play with shiny new toys. Going back to Old Faithful is a great way to pick on them sometimes, right? Especially when things are unrefined.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the winning event, it was a super good call, and even like you can kind of see like some of like the pseudo precautions he tried to make against Minosaur with the 1 of Mission Briefing, which in hindsight maybe should have been 2, but the 2 scouting missions is really big, right? Because it is. It's like one of the most like versatile cards in this list, ironically, because it has that black. It's gonna be good on offense. The blue's great on defense. Like there's nothing worse than a Quake flipping a blue on defense and it has base 4 defense in alt mode. It's unreal, unbelievable, just unbelievable. You can draw cards with it because Quake normally is a deck that tends to run out of cards without the Mission Briefing or the wedge formations to kind of keep you full. And you could just kill somebody. You could start a whole Quake chain just by scouting mission somebody, and that was it. You
absolutely can.
Yeah.
And you can like scouting mission is a zap when you don't care about how many cards they have in hand. right? Do they have 10 cards in hand? Cool. Scouting mission your guy.
Yeah. That's it.
Right? And I mean, on top of that, right, like, I also think I would actually contend that Reckless Charge in the main deck over Belligerence is actually also teched for Menasor.
Yeah. 100% was.
Menasor does not want you to rinky-dink deal damage. Like, it will absolutely eat you alive if you're trying to nickel and dime him. You gotta burst him. Right, and if you can burst him, you look really good into that matchup. But also, he can play 2 secret actions a turn, right? Yeah. Like, and end hostilities is in every single Menasor deck list. So, Belligerence is just not good into end hostilities when they have better access to it than you have access to your card. So, Reckless Charge doesn't care about end hostilities at all. It just says, I have 4 more attack.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
It's good. Grenade Launcher Reckless Charge is an aggro staple, and it's really good against Menasor.
It's really good. It's really good against everything, man. What's it bad against, right? It's bad against having 3 health left? Like
Force Field. It's really bad against Force Field.
Okay, it's really bad against Force Field, but you had Bashing Shield.
True, but then you can't play the grenade.
No, but you get to play Reckless Charge still.
That's true. You can't argue that. Real quick, before we jump to what you played for this event, I do also just kind of want to shout out to the idea of because me to kind of talk about Colin and his preparation for this event. We also talked about Heat of Battle as well as a main deck card instead of the Reckless Charge, just because that's also like I would say like if in a more blue meta you'd probably play the Heat of Battles over the Reckless Charges because that card's like really,
play Belligerence?
Really I mean you probably
Belligerence
you just play both. You just play both, right? Because I think there's
I don't know what you would cut.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know. Probably because we're at 41 already. I think depending on the metagame, you could probably go down off the RR Disruptor Blade, go down to 9 weapons, and just be up on actions. Or even just cut maybe a Fight for Position for a Heat of Battle too, and then you get up on lights anyway.
But you're down on Black Pips then. Fight for Position is so good because it's a direct damage spell and a pump spell.
That's true.
It does both.
That's a fair point.
I think Rock Toss is your worst Black Pip in the deck.
Oh, probably is, yeah. No precision fire in here either.
I think no precision fire is fine in a world where there's legend. Like if you're Quake specifically in a world of legend modes, just because of the fact that like your opponent is likely to have 1 character in each mode, is the truth of the matter. Yeah. And so like you're never gonna get the pseudo like strafing run.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway. Congratulations again to Colin Perkins for taking down the, I believe this was the July Full Con event, the first event for Season 4, technically. You took it down, and first-time winner. Congratulations, man. Just gonna give a clap right there. Fantastic.
Yeah. In this event, I played a deck list that the deck list name is nothing. It's not anything at all. It's DB. It's called. I think the link I sent you. It's DBNOP
V2,
which is
ATP-4.
Yeah,
it's a barcode. It's just.
It's a barcode. This is a serial number. So this was down but not out to Optimus Prime. And this is the second version of the deck list that I put together. This deck list is massively unrefined. I think we would come to understand that the Off-Road Patrol plus Orion packs aggro is actually a kind of a pillar of the ATP-4 metagame. It is probably the best 4-wide deck in the metagame.
Oh, 100%.
It's for an aggressive deck, because I really do think that Superion was really good in this metagame. And this is a full con event that I played this in. We'll come back to this, but this deck is entirely T1 legal, I believe. I don't think there is a single card that is banned in T1 that is in this deck.
It's a T1 deck, 100%.
So it was legal for both events. And you can tell this is a first iteration because there's a Major Ultra Magnus in the sideboard, and that card's bad. That card is really bad. Don't play it.
Were you playing out too tall? What was your sideboard
yes, my sideboard plan. My sideboard plan was to cut, tote, high jump, powertrain, bring in Magnus Spotlight, Ultra Magnus Armor, and an Aura of Dominance.
Huge. What value?
It was not a good plan.
Guess
at
you
all.
Never did it?
No, I never did it. Not one single time.
What a shame.
Actually, you know what? I think this is not the list that I actually submitted for the event. I think this was a slight update on the one I submitted for the event. Because the one I submitted for the event, I had 3 copies of Supporting Fire in the event. In my main deck. I want to see if I can find that real quick.
Sure.
But yeah, it is. But functionally, the deck was like really, really similar, right? I think you play like 14 or 15 Autobot cards, and you're kind of stretching to really get some in there. You're playing Trithelium Shield, for example, and that card is not good. But what it is an Autobot card with an orange pip on it, right? And so,
fair patch.
I mean, in this deck list, absolutely, right? And you are playing a couple of blues. Like, you kind of get a couple incidental blues outside of the +1 defense that just occurs for having, well, I don't know. Oh, there it was. Okay, I did find the actual deck list I submitted. Some incidental blues, right, from flipping an Autobot card on defense with Orion Pax once he's arisen. Right, but on top of that, you also get... Here, by the way, I'm gonna send you the updated link so you can put this in the show notes.
Yeah, sure.
Come on, Richard, do better.
Do better, Richard. My goodness.
There we go. Okay. And it wasn't 3 supporting fire main; it was 2 supporting fire main and 1 in the sideboard.
1 in the side
was what it was. Yeah. My sideboard is terrible. It's literally the one in the updated in the link I actually sent you there to correct it is literally 10 one-ofs. I'm not playing the Aura of Dominance. I'm playing Force Field, Reboot, Bolster, 1 Ultra Magnus Armor, a Belligerence, a Ghost Shield, a Hollow Matter, Reflect Damage, an Uplink, and a Supporting Fire. And one of the things to note about this deck list was one of the things that made it way, way worse in the metagame than I thought it was going to be was having my Uplink in the sideboard.
Yeah.
Uplink in the sideboard was really bad. Paralyzo Box was not good in the main deck. Absorption Core was not that great in the main deck, and Supporting Fire was not very good in the main deck, and Valiant Effort was way better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Like, way better.
Card's really good.
Even though you have 2 leaders and one of them's not even for the whole game, and you only have 1 ranged character, he's often your last guy.
Yeah.
And the way the game state works out, like if you're playing well, you will likely end up with Power Train or Optimus Prime as your last 2 characters, which means your Valiant Efforts are live late.
Yep.
Which is where that card shines. If that card is dead early, that's not that big a deal. It's a zap. And if it's live late, then it's better than any other pump action in the game. So, this deck list was really cool, and I kind of figured out about halfway through the tournament that my attack orders were supposed to be more varied. And this is one of the coolest things about this deck list is that you have, based on matchup, you literally have 3 different openings. You can either attack first with Orion Pax, first with Tote, or first with High Jump, depending on what you want to be trading with your in terms of your opponent's economy and cards. Which is really cool, and kind of like again, we talked about the idea of like a thinking man's aggro deck. I think this deck absolutely falls into that category.
It's thinking because it's not so much like the cards that you play. Like, you still play like a standard suite of like a lot of aggro deck cards, just a weapon and pump, right? But the fact that you have to, depending on whether you go first or second or even matchup, you have to change who you're going to send in first is actually like really impressive to just like have to figure out, and that's like really exciting. I think there was a lot of really interesting thinking aggro decks that kind of came up out of this metagame here.
I think so too.
Yeah, and you're going to see it. Like, this is widely a very aggressive orange metagame. But jumping over to the next tournament here, this is the first T1 event of the season.
Yes, it is.
This
is the first Junkyard.
It's the next Junkyard. I'm sorry. It's the one-day event. Yes. We're going to see some more aggro. So this is the one-day Junkyard event for ATP-4. There was only one Junkyard event. It was just a one-day. So this is going to be the only junk list that you're going to see for this season. You'll see more in season 5, I believe. But this list is I enjoy this list. Again, to shout out to the player. This was won by our own boy in the Discord, Butter. Butter's first win in an event. It was with this sweet Junkyard list. It's an updated version of the double 7 Sea Spray list from the last Junkyard season, but updated with Merkby, which is like huge. Like that's a pretty good upgrade from. Looks like he swapped Impactor, which is like really good because as you can see from his list, usually Junkylists play like Sharpened Talons for your green weapon. He just plays 3 Soldier's Blaster, which is like so much better. Just so much better. Yep.
Yeah, and you have all three. You have all 3 factions. So like, if playing 3, it is literally never dead.
It's never dead.
Probably the coolest thing he does in this list. Right behind, maybe including 2 basic combat protocols in your deck list, which I think
like
is a bold choice, but I appreciate it.
I mean, really though, when you think about it, there's hardly any utilities in the Junkyard metagame before this time, so it was just kind of a dead spot. Yeah, that was orange. Right. You sometimes would play like enhanced, no, not enhanced power cell. The minor meta kit, the double black one.
Black. Oh man, that card is not good too.
It's not that good. But, you know, in a Pierce list, you would run that, but this is obviously not a Pierce list. He has 9 blanks, but 32 oranges. This is a full-on aggro list, and he lets it shine, man.
He does.
I love the comparison between this list and the 4-wide RC list from Season 3's Junkyard events. Because they're both very aggressive, but this one plays smatterings of black, while the other one plays smatterings of blue, which I find really interesting, with like the basic combat protocols even kind of doing that more, so... This is just like a statement on Junkyard at the time, really, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I do also think, by the way, the list says Erratic Cannon. I'm pretty confident that's supposed to be Erratic Lightning.
Probably supposed to be Erratic Lightning. That's a good catch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's what happens when you have similar card names? Similar card names do that from time to time.
Daring Counterattack and Daring Escape, it's pretty... that was a pretty common one to mistake back in Wave 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah. But yeah, shout out to Butter. Another clap for this victory and first tournament win. Hope for more in the future from you, good sir. Also, fun fact, Butter's real name is Christian. So this is another Christian first place finish.
I did play this event. I finished in the top something. I do not remember what the actual finish place was. Yeah. I was playing Junkyard Seekers. A deck I had not really gotten to play when we were kind of putting the pieces together for it in ATP-4 during playtesting. So something I really wanted to take into the event. So I'm playing Thundercracker, the Seeker Thundercracker, Thrust from ATP-2, and Wave 1 Ramjet with his stratagem Simple, Sure, Steady from ATP-4. And I'm also playing 3 aerial superiorities in this deck list. Now, this deck list did not perform as well as I really wanted it to, but what did was aerial superiority. Every time I played that card, it made the game shift. Which was awesome to see. I did struggle with attack order in this deck list.
It's a really tough deck. Yeah.
It's a really tough deck for that. It's hard to know when you should be saving Ramjet for a big swing late, or when you should be trying to get aggressive with him early. And Thrust having Brave on the front side means like, do you want to be a going second deck? And it's just it had a lot more questions in terms of attack order than I was originally anticipating, and I don't think I handled them as well in this event as I did as I maybe would have now with the knowledge I gained from it. Right, which is, you know, kids out there, playtest before events.
It helps you.
Don't just go in blind. Also, hold the lines great and play more than one copy in Junkyard.
Yeah, you gotta play more than one in Junkyard.
You gotta play more than one. I played one main, one side. You need more than that.
Yeah.
That's my summary for the deck.
It's funny. So, kind of to reflect off of the first one-day event, I could not play in this one, and I was actually going to play this exact same list. I was going to play Junk Seekers for the one-day event.
Well, how about it?
Man, I was so bummed I couldn't play it too, and it cost me for season champion, I believe. But yeah, the Junk Seekers I think is a really, really sweet junk deck because it can play the aerial superiority, and I think just looking at this list from how I would play, it's very close. I think the only things I would change out of this list is not include the supercharge, play 3 leaving the battle. Like, don't even worry about, like, because you're already playing the blanks, like you're already on 3 EM24, 3 Blade Flurry, 3 aerial superiority. You're not relying on your flips whatsoever. If you get oranges, fantastic, but if not, you just have to go pure static damage. So I found I have play tested. I did play test with the Junk Seekers recently, actually, for some ATP-5 play testing for some junk decks. The Leap into Battle is such a better card than Supercharge on the list. It's phenomenal. Just by Fear of Future just being like a big, big chunky attackers, because that's really what Seekers are. They can just be big static attackers. And like you said, the attack order is super difficult, because like I would say this is probably one of the best deck lists for Thrust to stay in Brave mode, because you're not really relying on the flips. But at the same time, depending on the matchup, you may want to get that bold because you're still running like 20 some oranges. You're still gonna get oranges on the flips,
What if you really need aerial superiority? So like when he dies, you're like, my game plan is he dies and I use his revenge to play superiority onto Ramjet, and that's how I win the game. Yeah. Right? Like, it's one of the things where, like, I really wish that you had an option out of Seekers in Junkyard for braver stealth.
Yeah.
I think that would be like the last, it's not the last, but like the next most important piece for them to get.
Yeah, I could see that, because they have a lot of stuff to. They all already have like a lot of that brave and stealth stuff already, but have something to kind of like a battle card specific to enable
battle card
more would be really sweet.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, just a little heads up for season 5. You'll probably see me play this list. You'll probably see me play this list. Just a little heads up.
We will have, of note, and this is a little spoiler time, we will have a big Junkyard event in season 5.
There we go. There it is. It's gonna be huge. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of news in junk now.
It's gonna be massive. It's gonna look totally different from what you're used to. There were so many good commons printed in ATP-5, like so many. I cannot express to you. There's like 5 stratagems. There's like 5 battle cards. I think there's like 2 or 3 characters as well, or 3 or 4 characters.
I believe.
Yeah.
They're all good. They're all really cool for the format.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Not even here.
Yeah, moving on from junk, moving on from the 1 days. I believe that was the last 1 day event. I could be wrong, but
I think it was.
Yeah, but here we
on
got
the T1.
T1, everyone's favorite format, and knocked out by our one and only Frank from the Discord, playing his staple.
Frank.
Superion.
I know, man.
Super love this list. I'm super excited to talk about this list.
Sweet. Like every time I look at it, it's just like chef's kiss. It feels like, okay, so I'm sure you've heard this before, like the idea of like somebody massaging the numbers in a deck list. These look like they were lovingly massaged a lot.
I would say so. Take them to the salon every weekend at least. We're not going over every player in top 8, but in last month's full con events for that we're going by here in the timeline, Frank played Superion and got top 8 in the full con event as well. So this is not his first top in the season with Superion, but he was able to finish with it this time after refining that deck list, and you could tell. You could super tell by this.
I totally agree. Frank, his deck list looks great. The only thing that makes me a little shaky is these steady shots. That's just not a card I've ever loved.
Yeah,
personally.
But you get it though. Like
I do get it. Like it's a blue-black, right? So it checks that box. It's a combat pump, which one of the things that Superion sometimes suffers from is just like he struggles to like get over the hump to KO characters in combat. And steady shot helps. Is as minuscule as the help is, it is help.
Yeah, I mean, even look at the one Valiant effort. That +3 only goes on Silverbolt, but once you're Superion, he's ranged, so it's now a deal 2.
He is.
It's just a free
deal 2,
which is kind of interesting. To
it's a white pip plasma burst. I actually really love the Valiant effort in here. I also think you are wrong to play more than 1.
I think so. I think Frank does that. I think he clearly do that. Like, and an interesting thing too, like with Superion. Something that comes up way more in Full Con than it does in T1, but it does still sometimes come up, is the ability to take out a Titan Master on your swing out turn, because you're typically wider, and then when you combine, because the head pops out, you combine, and then you deal 4 to the head, KOs it, and now they have a tap down turn, because you already missed the untap phase, which is like probably one of the biggest tools that Superion has again in Full Con. And a little bit in Type 1. Definitely not as much in Type 1, but it's something to be aware of if you're playing the deck, if that's something feasible. If they're playing like Fangry and they're attacking with Fangry first, it's definitely an option for you, and it's like one of the biggest tempos plays like in existence in the game. I think it's ridiculous.
It's insane, right? And it's one of those things where like, if you can construct the game to go in that way, you're gonna have a really hard time losing. I think.
Yeah.
Right.
You will.
The trick is trying to actually find the spot for that to be the case.
Yeah. It's also not even like finding the spot. It's also knowing whether you should go for it or not. Because there's gonna be times like you're doing it halfway through, but then they do something to like the Fangry, like they either heal it or they put an armor on it, and all of a sudden it's like.
Yep. Like okay, abandoned ship. We're going after the other character. Like.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, you know, so in ATP-4, okay, back up a little bit. Superion never really had the same competitive pedigree as the other ATP redone combiner, right, Minosaur.
Yeah.
So ATP-4 comes along, and they get a card. They get Long Range Volley. And of note, so we're not talking about the whole top 8, right, but there were 2 Autobot decks in top 8, and they both made finals.
Yeah.
And every other deck was a Decepticon deck. Long Range Volley in a Decepticon heavy metagame is nuts. It is absolutely insane.
Not just a Decepticon heavy metagame, a Ghost Starscream heavy metagame, which this event was.
Yeah.
Long Range Volley is so good against Starscream. It's unbelievable.
So good. Yeah. And personally, you love to see that card come up and be relevant and like be in a spot to attack the metagame. We talked about like ATP-4 giving birth to a wide variety of thinking man's aggro decks, right? Well, you know what crushes just hard aggro? Superion. Because in a heavy aggro metagame, people's numbers of belligerents start to trend down, and in a Decepticon metagame, people's numbers of mag rays start to trend down. And the 2 best cards against Superion are belligerents and mag ray. So if you can find a spot in the metagame where those 2 cards are not as prevalent, that's your window, man. And Frank did, and he played it extremely well, all the way through, and took it down. And you love to see it.
His finals match is on YouTube, and I highly recommend watching it. It's exciting to watch. It's a pretty intense game all the way through, and I do just want to talk about one more card in this list that I think everyone slept on in the format, I would say, because this is not the only blue-black deck that saw a lot of popularity. There was also Snapdragon and Ghost Starscream, which is another really strong blue-black deck in the ATP-4
also known as Nope Scream.
Nope Scream, Ghost Dragon. It's got a lot of names. A lot of names, and that deck saw a lot of finishes. It never won an event, but it was like top 4, top 8 a lot.
And it looks scary a lot of the time.
Scary good deck.
It is a scary good deck.
Yeah, and what both of those decks do incredibly well is play that secret action called Concealing Contrails. In an aggro metagame is unbelievable. I think in an aggro metagame it's better than Despite Any Difficulty, because when you play like this list here, I have seen Superion block for like 15 with the Concealing Contrails in like Aspiring Gear, because so many of your decks have blacks on them. So now you're just flipping like 5 double blues from your Concealing Contrails.
Yeah, it's like just so much tough too. Like a single white pip is just nuts, right? Especially for like Superion, you have tough, and you flip an aerial defense armaments, right? So white, blue, and you're just like, all right, cool, blue, black, and you're like, we did it.
Yep.
I know dabbing is way out of. We talked about not being hip with the lingo. It includes the rest of the social zeitgeist.
That was pretty. That was very late to the party. I could already feel that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no. I hope that I get roasted in comments for that. I hope that I do.
I'll be the one to roast. Don't worry. Anyway,
I appreciate that.
Anyway, congratulations again to Frank on this win and first time winning a tournament again. Another first time finisher. It was a fantastic deck. Such a sweet deck as well, man. Congrats again.
So shall we go on to our Richard, where were you segment that we've got going on?
Yeah.
So talk about the winners. Like, hey Richard, where were you?
Yeah, where were you, Richard?
I was losing to him in the finals. So we talked about the top 8 being 6 Decepticon decks and 2 Autobot decks. The 2 Autobot decks were the ones that made it to the finals. And both of them 4 wide starting. So people just did not bring enough mag rays to this event.
No.
For that. And I played a revamped, tuned version of the decklist I played in the Full Con Open. I played, which is the much better name as well, which is important. So now it's called Build a Brave, which is the fact that it was supposed to be a going second deck. That was the intention behind building the deck originally, was how do I build a deck that is just as good going second, if not better, than going first? Because I had found that, especially in ATP-3, play draw had determined so many of my wins, at least game 1, and I didn't like that feeling. I wanted to see what I could do to try and combat that. Right, so Builder Brave, this 4-white Orion Pax deck, if you're going second, you're better. Like, you are a better going second deck because you will get 2, maybe 3 defenses out of Orion Pax before he rises, which is just like insane, right? And on top of that, it's not like you're presenting better other targets for your opponent to attack, right? When you throw Tote out, and you give him a bashing shield, that's 7. Most characters without any kind of help can't hit 7.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? Or it requires like a real character to attack. You can't attack with a supporting cast character. And that, we talk about on many different forms of media, the most important resource in this game being combat, being the number and efficacy of your attacks. So if you have to waste real attacks into what I consider expendable pieces, then you're just trading down every single time, right? Not to mention hijack.
There's never a time when attacking Toad doesn't feel like the worst thing ever.
It feels awful. The idea that you, like, so that's one of the reasons why actually I think that Superion is so good, because Superion can basically just every game kill Toad out of combat.
Yeah.
Every game.
Easy. Super easy.
Yeah, it's not even hard. Like, barely even trying.
You can like Sturdy Javelin or Caming Crash before you combine. And then that's it. Like, okay, I killed Tote. Because when you combine, you'll just deal 4 to him. That's it. Easy peasy.
Yep, it is nuts. And if you look at kind of the rest of the deck list here too, you'll notice that there's a couple things different, right, from the linked list. Not the one we showed, but I am up on Valiant Effort. I am out of supporting fires. Those cards are gone from forever. I have a different sideboard character. I've got Captain Impactor now to go down to 3 tall or 3 wide instead of 4 wide. In some of the matchups where I was expecting a bunch of mag rays and such. I've got the Spy Satellite uplink in the main deck. And I didn't have the bravery to cut the Paralyzo box, but I really should have. Paralyzo box was terrible in this deck list.
Tough to say.
For 2 tournaments. 2 tournaments. It was bad. And I know that you are a huge advocate of P-Box, but
if I had a mug with a P-Box image on it, I would own one. I would.
Oh my god, I just can't. Every time I play that card, I'm just like, yeah, this is... Even though I'm playing 2 Take by Surprises, if I didn't have Take by Surprise, Paralyzo Box was terrible.
Yeah.
It's true. Although, Reckless Charge was very good for me.
You're only one of Reckless Charge, which is easy to find considering you draw with the Ryan Impact and he rises and you have 3 confidence. And
so,
if you play against a legend deck, or
and you play against legend deck, you get to draw 2 from down but not out. So like you just have like a built-in 2 pep talks on your team.
Pretty good.
This is the best confidence deck in the entire metagame.
Yeah.
Confidence is a card that is harder to leverage than it reads, and this deck is really, really, really good at it.
Yeah.
Because your actions are all very high impact, but some of them are more situational. You have a ton of redundant effects as well, right? Yeah. So like Show of Mastery, Valiant Effort, Armored Assault, Belligerence, Head-on Collision, Reckless Charge. Those are all different pump actions in reality, right? And one of the things that Reckless Charge was so good in this deck was if you could play it going second on Orion Pax.
That's chef's kiss. That's so good.
Yeah, so like I'll put him to 6, and then like opponent's like, well, how do I not KO Orion Pax to arise him? You'd be like, yeah, I don't really care how you don't kill him. Or you could put an Absorption Core on him, and then set him to like 1 health left.
Oh, yeah. That's
and so your opponent's just frazzled, just like, I have to waste like a whole attack into dealing this thing 1 damage to arise, and you're just like, it was fantastic. There was tons of play to this deck. I had so much fun. And I also, of note, some of the differences. So the sideboard looks way different this time around. Yeah. And you'll notice that there's a Hold the Line in the sideboard in T1, which is not always there. Hold the Line, and Energy Pack, and Battlefield Scan. Those are cards that come in as a package against Ghost Starscream. I figured it out, and it became a really effective package. Now, here's why Hold the Line matters against Ghost Starscream. So when your Optimus arises, he has 8 health left.
Yep.
Hold the Line repairs 1, and then limits how much damage can be dealt to your character who's defending to the number of stars the opponent attacks. Do you know how many stars Ghost Scream is?
A big ol' 8.
Christian? That'd be 8 stars. So when you heal one, you have 9 left. And then Ghost Scream can't do more than 8, which means you're always going to live on 1.
Yeah.
Even if they have the most nuts flip ever, most nuts turn ever. And then you get to, hopefully, swing into Ghost Scream. And when you do, you're going to KO it. Because Orion Pack swings like a truck.
Yeah.
And that is not a pun.
Well, I mean, once Starscream arises...
They're all trucks.
Yeah. All the trucks on
they
the
all
team
swing
can
like
probably
trucks.
kill.
Oh, it could have been a deck name. Could have been like Swings Like Trucks.
Swings Like Trucks. See, that's better than Build a Brave, in my opinion. I do want to shout out, too, before we move to the next deck list, for time's sake, that I'm glad you took out the 3 bolsters from your sideboard this event.
Bolster was bad.
Yeah, so the deck, I don't know if it's on the deck you sent. I think you said you had 1 bolster in the deck you just sent, but the one I had listed on here, you had 3 bolsters in your sideboard.
Yeah, bolsters were bad.
Bolsters
were really bad. Yeah, and I hated it. I was really mad at myself that I played it.
All right. Well, moving on to next month. This is the September Titan one, and this is taken down by yours truly, Christian and Wyatt again. But
you really only drop. You O2 drop or win. Those are really only things you do.
It's a pattern. It is a pattern. This is probably the favorite deck list I played this whole season. This 3-wide Rodimus Prime list was so much fun, and it was so good the whole way. This is because Hot Rod has been a character that no one really saw a lot of play during the season, and so I think me and one other person registered Hot Rod in the whole entirety of the season, which is
So I believe that every single ATP-4 legend after this event made it to the finals or won an event.
Yeah, in this event alone, all 4 were in top 8, at least one day.
Yeah, which was so cool. Like you see the format develop, and like all of them, you start to figure out their niches, and they make it in. Yeah. Rodimus was one of the best ones in playtesting, so the fact that he didn't appeal to people the same way kind of blew my mind. So honestly, it was somewhat comforting to watch you dominate some folks with Rodimus in this tournament.
Yeah, this deck is like the epitome of 3 tall aggro, because it's essentially a Wreckers list that has been transformed into, instead of just being solely on Wreckers, it has a Hot Rod. So you're having the show of masteries, you're having more draw power, you play the withdrawal protocols a lot better, and you pretty much have 2 leaders, so that you have the show, so you can play the 3 Valiant efforts really easily. And the best part is you play Sea Spray, because both Impactor, your Autobot leader you play, and Hot Rod are 9 stars. You flip Sea Spray, and now the Hot Rod and Impactor both have +1, which are both 9 stars. And if you go first, this is one of the best going first decks ever, let me tell you. You can flip Sea Spray. It's
so good.
It's scary.
Oh my god.
There was a time in the event, because Hot Rod has got that bold too, I flipped Sea Spray, I went first, I swung Hot Rod into an Orion Pax. I was playing against the 4-wide Optimus Off-Road Patrol list against Butter, and I attacked for 11, and I made Orion Pax arise immediately. And it was unbelievable, because I flipped 3 oranges, I flipped a white, and I flipped a double orange and another orange. So I hit for 11, and then I had the C +1, and I KO'd, and I made the Orion Pax arise. It was unbelievable.
I mean, it's just a great deck. And I also think that so one of the things I really wanted to applaud you on about this deck was the bravery that you had in cutting Hunker Down.
Did I cut Hunker Down?
Yeah, there's no Hunker Down.
I did cut the Hunker Down. Yep, I did.
And I really applaud you for that. Hunker Down is one of those cards that's so tempting to play.
Yeah, it was on my list for a long time, which is why I was confused by it. And I just built another records list with Hunker Down, and so I'm shocked that I did. But I only am on, I'm only on 1 tank though, right? And that tank is never going to be flipping. I'm not going to get any flip value out of it. But still, at least seeing the 1 composite armor, I don't think you can ever not play that composite armor with Impactor. It's just so good on him.
When you have it, it's just nuts.
Yeah, it's just good. Yeah. Anyway, this is what
you don't have that many black pips to trigger it, right? I guess you really only have withdrawal protocol, And uplink.
Uplink, yeah, that's it. And I mean that's fine, I think, really, because it's just there for defense, like, and up on attack. It's because this is it's not quite a mid-range deck, but it's like really teetering on that edge because we play the 3 end hostilities, the Noble Blaster. The 3 end hostilities were amazing, by the way. Absolutely incredible card, and my favorite card in this whole list because I can play a star card. I got
is nothing to lose. You love nothing to lose.
Best card in ATP-4, hands down. I love that card to pieces, man.
He says playing 3 Show of Masteries in every deck list in the entire metagame.
Pretty much. I'm pretty much am. I love Show of Mastery too. And let me tell you, the best side deck card was actually the 2 Relentless Pursuits in this metagame. It was so good. It was good in the finals.
Tell you what,
really good in the finals.
I mean, like, you play against, you know what's hilarious is, like, if you play against another one of these 996 teams, Relentless Pursuit, just being like, 1 damage to Impactor, 2 damage to your Impactor and your Hot Rod.
Yeah.
Like, that is an unbelievable amount of damage you got out of the card.
It's scary. Like, in a field where, I played against Dan in the finals, who was basically running a very similar deck list, but it was 2 9-star tanks and a 5-star powertrain. Being able to play this Relentless Pursuit, because he played a secret, and I know it's like an end hostilities, so I'm not going to push any damage through on an attack, so I might as well just play this Relentless Pursuit that I drew, and still deal your whole team 4 total, because you have 2 9-stars. It hits both of them. It's absolutely incredible. But we're gonna move on from this list here. Really, really fun list. All my top 8 games are actually on YouTube on the Vector Sigma channel. The top 8, the top 4, and the finals, which is fun to watch. So if you're curious about this list in action, check it out. I think this list is gonna be really good in the ATP-5 as well. I think it doesn't lose anything in the coming metagame at all.
Yeah. So, like, I guess you want to do our favorite segment, which is Richard, where were you?
Yeah, where were you, Richard?
I don't remember if I made it past the quarterfinals in this or not.
You were 4th. You were 4th seed in this.
Was I semis? It was semis.
You were top 4. Top 4, yeah.
My deck list in this event is one of the most wild I've ever taken into a month long. Hands down.
What's the name of the deck list, Richard?
It is Car Scream, and there's an AKA there. It says Ghost Rides the Whip.
Yeah.
Which is because Ghost Scream and cards, like, that's what you're playing. Yeah. And you were playing basically what I would, in terminology from other games borrowed, I'd call it untapped tribal.
Untapped tribal, yeah.
So, you were playing 3 engines, 3 turbo boosters, 3 ready for action.
You were on 3 ready for action? I didn't even notice that. Holy cow, you're on 3 ready for action, my man.
3 ready for action. This deck list was wild. And if you misplayed with it, you lost games immediately.
It looks like it, dude. This deck looks insane.
You're winning on extremely small margins, but you got to do some really cool stuff on the way out. Like, you got to do stuff like have a complete swing out turn with a legend mode character into your opponent who's just completely tapped, right? Like, there were multiple games where my opponent was playing, like, let's say, for example, like a Herald's deck. And we got to, like, the turn before the wheel turn, and I would do something along the lines of, like Turbo Boosters my Wheeljack, untap, and then, like, Belligerence.
Belligerence, man, that's so good.
That's flip, so good. Right? Flip, draw a card, right? And you're just like, alright, so then I would, like, swing, kill, swing, rise. And my opponent's just down to 1 character, to my 3 characters, right? So, like, even if they just have a nuts hand, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so, basically what you're trying to do is this deck draws a ton of cards naturally by the way you built it, right? It has Show of Masteries built in as a pump spell as well, and you just are flipping Wheeljack to and fro to draw cards from Cliffjumper and to play cards off his back to alt mode trigger. Of note, I think the Wave 1 Wheeljack is probably a better card in this deck list.
Sure.
But I did enjoy having the Wheeljack as an alternate, like, win condition, where he was my last character left. That did happen a couple of times.
Yeah.
Not very often.
It's threatening. If people ignore it, I feel like it is.
It is. But, like, you were trying to get it to where none of your, like, each of your characters took 1 attack and didn't get KO'd before the wheel, And so, like, you were trying to do things like play Withdrawal Protocol or untap them. Withdrawal Protocol is functionally an untap in this deck list, which is really interesting. Because, like, you're just giving a character a turn of reprieve.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if every one of your characters could take an attack and untap, you were going to win the game, almost guaranteed.
Yeah.
And that was what the deck was designed to do. This is the hardest deck I played in the season, bar none.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like what it demanded for me as a pilot, I got a headache after every match. So like, this is one of those decks that, like, if we were still back in the days of old paper tournaments where you just played for 9 hours and that was like the thing, I could never have taken this because I don't have the mental stamina to think at that level that was required to actually perform well with this deck for that long in a row. But it was extremely fun.
Would you call this a Super Johnny deck?
Yeah, this is definitely a Johnny Spike deck.
A Johnny Spike deck.
When you got it to do what it did, you're like, oh, I did it.
Yeah.
Right. And then sometimes you would still lose because your power level wasn't all that high. Like, so one of the things to look at, the health on this team is like kind of low. All things considered.
Is it like?
It's not that low. I guess so. It's like if you look at Wheeljack is what 14, but he deals damage to himself.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll count him 12. Cliffjumper is a raw 12, so that's 24. And then Ghost Scream is 14 plus like the customary +1 for legend modes.
Yeah.
So 15, which is 39 health, so it doesn't even hit the 40 health rule.
Sure.
If you're gonna actually do anything with Wheeljack's ability, otherwise he's just like a blank card that says car on it.
This car. Yeah.
Just like what's Wheeljack do? He's a car. He doesn't get the bull too.
Yeah.
No, which is why I think ATP Wheeljack is worse than Wave 1 Wheeljack in the Decklist starting character. I boarded in Wave 1 Wheeljack almost every game.
That makes sense.
Even though it does make you more susceptible to end hostilities.
True. What I love about this list is it just looks like the culmination of every single one of your one-day event lists that you've taken up to this point, and it actually ended up working this time. It's pretty much what it looks like. It's because you played stuff that looks just like this in one-day events. Like, honestly.
Man, I really have. We're just like pips all over the place. Like this is an aggressive deck.
This is a master.
This is an aggressive deck. This is the most master Metallicato deck of all time. You're using every part of that pig.
Yeah. Well, it's fun too because Starscream is a specialist in melee, so he gets the best 2 pips on Mom.
He's the best 2 pips on the back side, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then you have like inbuilt bold with your other characters, right? Including playing it on Starscream is great because the Bold 2 native is insanely good. This deck was weird. It was probably the worst, or I guess the lowest power level deck I took at any of these events. It took a lot of playtesting to tune, and even then I'm still not especially happy with where it ended up.
Yeah.
It's
cool.
And it's so cool though. It felt so good when it worked. Like it's one of the things like something that brings you back to decks that like feel good when you do what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And this deck did not do that all that consistently. It probably like did what you were trying to do 70% of the time. But when you did it, it felt so good. You felt like you earned it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to the last tournament here, which was just last October here. This is to finish off the season. It was a full con event. To kind of round out, because the beginning was full con, ends full con now. This one was one.
It's full con sandwich.
It's a full con sandwich, where you have the bread, but the best stuff's in the middle usually. Let's be honest.
It's true.
It's true.
So this got taken down by Fangry Horrible X.
Fangry Horrible X.
The truth of the matter.
Yep. Go Starscream, Fangry Horrible. 3 Titans. Or 2 Titans.
But hey, it's not Quake. It's not Quake. There's 2 ATP characters in here. There's Infinitus and Ghost Scream.
Yeah, and there's 5 times more ATP cards actually in the deck than the Quake deck, which is kind of cool.
I know, right? We got Withdrawal Protocols, Show of Mastery, Take by Surprise in the main deck. On the upgrade side, I think it's just Absorption Core, though.
Just Absorption Core.
Yeah. Just Absorption Core. Which is a cool card, but like,
the deck kind of encompasses everything about full con, right? Like it's just super efficient characters, right? Like one thing about this versus
Quake.
Oh,
we forgot about something. Who took this tournament down?
Oh, it was me.
Oh
won
yeah,
this
it was
tournament.
you. It was you. Right.
Yeah, I won this event to clear off season 4. How many Christians won tournaments this event? In this list?
3.
4.
I guess in this list 4 if you count the.
Gotta count.
No, I was saying like I was counting in the season 3.
I suppose
4
so.
in the list we've covered.
Yeah. So, just to go over this list, because I don't want to go over this one for too long because it's pretty much just like full con the deck. What makes this list like I think better than Quake, or at least like differentiated from Quake, is the fact that your heads on your Titans are just so much better. Like you can play Grax and Horrible, you can play Infinitus and Fangor, which is just better than Kreb because you get an extra bold 1. Absolutely incredible. Like, and you get to play Mom, like the three master Metallicalos is the best card in the list for what we said about Ghost Scream, and just like being able to play it with Fangor. Like we've run as many colors as we kind of can in here, just by virtue of wanting to hit those moms really easily. So it's full con the list. You know, I think it's a pretty standard way to end the full con season.
I think that this deck list shows a lot of evolution, though. Like, I think that Enforcement Batons is not stock by any means, and I know it was extremely good for you all event long.
It sure was. Super good list. Yeah, I played the 2 heated battles, and I have a video kind of covering this list too. Like, I wanted this list. Like, I played the 3 Cayman Crash and 3 Precision Fire, but that's all the burn I play. Aside from all the
you play horrible.
I mean, I play horrible, right? But I'm not like doing anything else besides that, right? Like I wanted this deck to be like a value attacking list where like I can choose to be a really pierce heavy list if I wanted to, or I can make a really big swing with like the reckless charge and the grenade launchers if that's what required of me. Having different ways to attack on different axes was what I pushed this list, and it served me really well in the event. Really
of note, this is probably the fewest number of real black pips that I think I've ever seen in a horrible deck. It says 16 here on the deck list in the link, right? But it's really 14 because when you play Withdrawal Protocol, you play it face down.
Yeah.
So it doesn't trigger horrible.
It's never a black for me because I have no leader.
It's never a black. Yeah, you have no leaders, so it's really like it's a black for Mom, and that's really it, right?
Yep.
But he was still really good, right? Because you don't need him to trigger. You don't need horrible to trigger on every single play on every single turn, right?
No.
You need it to trigger when you need DD, and so.
It's true.
And you had more black tips in the sideboard, right? Like you have 2 erratic entry and a grenade. You have a counter espionage. Like you have access to those things in the sideboard. I like a lot of what's going on in this deck list, except for the fact that Fangry and Horrible and the health heads are still just like it's just so insane on right.
It's true, but you know. When I built this deck list, it was meant to be the deck, very specific, a deck that's haunted me for most of the game. And we're gonna go into where was Richard, who's playing the deck I hate the most ever, which is Prison Menasor.
I was playing Prison Menasor, and I got knocked out in the quarterfinals by you.
Yeah.
Who we played in the last round of Swiss.
Yeah. And
in the last round of Swiss, we had some heartbreaking games on both sides.
Yeah.
And in the top 8 match, that was not how it went. There were heartbreaking games from my side.
Yeah, it was
Menasor, ATP Menasor, especially the prison version, is an incredibly effective, incredibly efficient deck. It didn't really get any prints in ATP-4, unless you want to count Reflector Cell, which my list is featuring 2.
Really good.
Reflector Cell is a great card in general.
Yeah.
Right, not being susceptible to Bashing Shield and Armor Slot is really good. Being able to stack multiple plus defense things on your character is really good when you don't need the health yet, especially when you have Sturdy. But of note, he doesn't always have Sturdy. Not just when he doesn't have 30 health, but also when your opponent has Ghost Starscream on the other side of the board.
Yeah.
And Ghost Starscream was partially designed, the backside, with the intention that it would have really effective matchups into Menasor in the metagame. Legend modes in general were designed to kind of counteract the I have one dude, he attacks big nature of the ATP-3 metagame. That's part of the reason why they work the way they do. And our matchup really told that story, right? Like, I went 1-4 in games against you in this tournament.
Yeah.
And your sideboard wasn't even all that tooled to combat me, right? I think you had a single paralyze. Yes, belligerence. I don't count belligerence against me, right? Sure. Like lock on lasers, counter espionage were really the things you had for me,
that was
right?
It. Yep, that was absolutely it.
You play the belligerents because they're just like not really anything better, but belligerents are just good against half the metagames. So, and they were huge. And one of the downfalls of Menasor is that you can't really do anything about the top of your opponent's deck, right? Like you're trying to get their hands empty.
Yeah.
And when your opponent has enough good cards and a good enough proactive game plan into what you're doing, then one good top deck can be enough to beat you.
It's tough, you know.
And two good top decks, right? And not like a one on a single turn, right? Like you have like 3 or 4 turns to get one good top deck and do it, right? Because Menasor is not quick at closing the game. Yeah. And like 2 good top decks will end you, guaranteed, right? And so yeah, like if you just have enough good cards in your deck, like
what do?
You can win.
Yeah.
You can win against the top deck war. And Menasor is just like not that efficient. It is a reactive deck.
It is. Yeah. I think that's the best way to put it. It's, you know, in this deck saw a lot of great success in ATP-3. You know, coming to ATP-4, it still got a top 8 finish, but it definitely, watching the games and playing against this deck, it definitely struggled a lot more versus what was probably a big menace in the ATP-3 metagame now. Just kind of has a lot more it has to contend with, which makes me happy to see because I think this deck is diarrhea personally. I'm not a fan of it. My personal opinions are gonna be noted right here, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Of note, 2 Hold the Line was insane for me all tournament long.
Yeah. That's a good.
And the steamroll was cute. It mattered in 1 game in the whole tournament.
Yeah.
And I probably could have benefited from it being something else.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. All right. Well, Richard, that's the season 4. That was all.
Yes, it is.
Season 4. Those are the first place finishes. Shout out again to Frank, Butter, Colin, Brokebox. Congrats again on winning those tournaments and getting your name out there as champions for the first time in the ATP series metagame tournament series. I think it's super awesome to see these players just like, and you see them play all the time, right? You see these people enter tournaments, and it's really exciting to me seeing people just rise up and be able to just win a whole event, right? It's like super exciting, and I think, and that was a lot of the reason why we wanted to make this video. Is we wanted to really celebrate their victories, right?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the way I see it, right? I like watching the Olympics, not because I'm an avid follower of the 100-meter metagame of the world, right? I like to watch people do something well, and even more so, I watch stories and documentaries of people rising to like sports Hall of Fame legendary status from like little rookies, right? Because I like to watch people like I like to try and boil down what it is that makes someone great at something. I think like that is a really compelling set of ideas, and one of the things that's been really cool about like playing in this series and in this season and in this all sorts of stuff, right, is to watch people who did not know much about the game or knew very little about the game or had not engaged with it in a competitive way before, like come onto the scene, like be hungry to learn, and then to like manifest results from it.
Yeah, man.
It's been really awesome.
It's so cool. And you know, it doesn't even have to be a finish. It doesn't have to be like a whole tournament win, right? Like it could just even be a top 8. It could even be going 9th in Swiss and not just barely missing top 8, right? Like that's
the bubble. I hate the bubble.
The bubble's tough, but you know what? If you got to the bubble, that means you still did better than you did maybe in other tournaments, right?
Yeah, and if you miss on breakers, like that sucks, but you know that happens. Yep.
That's the game. Yeah.
All right, so you want to do some final thoughts on this thing? Close her out.
Absolutely. So overall, as we saw, like with this metagame, it was widely orange. There was a lot of interesting ATP-4 cards in decks that came out of this season. Going into Season 5, and I'm not sure if you'd agree with me on this or not, Richard, but I would say the nature of the cards in Season 5, I think only add to the metagame. I don't see a lot of decks in ATP-4 that necessarily got worse. Right, it's not like Menasor and Overlord got worse. Like they got worse going into ATP-4, but I don't see a lot of decks in ATP-4 that did well being bad in ATP-5. I think either they go a little bit more horizontal move on like tier or playability lists, and just I think we're gonna see a lot of interesting new toys get brought into the Season 5 metagame. Would you kind of agree with me on that, Richard?
I think one deck got bad.
What deck do you think?
Car Scream is really bad in the face of Downfall Protocol. Can
That's
never beat that card ever.
That's a fair point. So other than Car Scream.
No, I think that ATP-5 looks to be a massively diverse metagame. You've done tier lists before in T1 and Full Con and things like that, and I don't even think you could do one.
I don't think so.
In the Season 5, unless there's something like horribly broken and it's just like, oh yeah, there's one good deck and everything else is rogue.
Hopefully not.
Which hopefully not, right? But if that's still, verdict's still out.
It happens.
But it looks like there's a ton of stuff being added. It looks like there's a lot more relevant blue strategies than there were in the ATP-4 metagame. But I don't think that there's a ton of cards that just invalidate orange by any means, right? And I do think that people's sideboards are going to be really determinant of their success in this season.
I agree.
So I think it's gonna take people who are willing to devote some time to tuning and figuring out what their bad matchups are and how to combat them or adapt to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say one thing in ATP-5 that will be interesting, because ATP-4 was pretty well run by the 4 legends, pretty consistently in varieties of different deck lists. There's 5 new legends, but now there's more anti-legend cards. So now there's going to be more reasons to feel you might be punished for actually playing a legend, for maybe lack of a better word. Maybe not punished, but you have more to look out
No,
for.
I think that's true. I think your opponent may be ready to capitalize on the fact that you were playing legend mode characters in the season, where I think it was pretty hard to do so in the past season, save maybe Rally.
Yeah, probably Rally. Yeah, I would say that if me going into the ATP-5 metagame, knowing that and seeing and testing some of these anti-legend cards and how effective they are, I would say if your deck can allow it, if you're mainboarding a legend mode character, I would say if your sideboard allows it, look into characters that can replace that legend mode character and have a bit more of a transformative sideboard plan, other than just kind of a bunch of this makes my deck a little bit better, or this is going to hit this character a lot more. I would say the idea of transformative sideboards is going to be a lot bigger into ATP-5, just from my own testing. A great example of this is the 3-wide Rodimus Prime list. The sideboard character in that event was Wheeljack, ATP Wheeljack. You can go from a Hot Rod deck into a Wreckers deck right away, and that now can really hurt people that are sideboarding into these anti-legend cards. It can hurt cards like Double Dealer. It's a different breadth. It's just going to give you more options as a player and deck builder for the strategies.
I totally agree, and of note, Double Dealer in particular. When you have a legend mode character on the other side, Double Dealer is an absolute. It's just strictly above rate.
It's really good. It's scary good.
Scary good. And when your opponent doesn't have a legend mode character, Double Dealer looks pretty fine.
I would say so. It still looks good.
Looks good.
10 drop, man.
Nowhere near as good, but still looks good. But yeah, there's a difference between having just ridiculous stats and the ability to play extra cards every turn, versus drawing extra cards every other turn and being kind of below curve on stats.
I'd agree.
But being a mercenary, right? Being a mercenary is a huge game, right? So I actually think Double Dealer is poised to. I would be surprised if he didn't top 8 every single event, at least one list.
I kind of agree. I'd agree. I think the
main or side. I don't know if he's gonna start.
Yeah, that's true. He's a great sideboard character.
He's a great sideboard character. Yeah, and actually, I think because of Double Dealer in particular, I think that in these transformative sideboard ideas, I would say that who's sideboarding first is going to matter a lot in this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it probably will.
Which it hasn't in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Right, or it's rare when it has in the past, as opposed to it, I think, being probably a fixture. Right, so I'm looking forward to everybody relearning the sideboarding rules to make sure they get it right.
We've got a lot of questions in the Discord already asking about sideboard rules. Man. It's great. It's good though. Not enough people care it again.
Yeah, people care about it again, which is great. That was one of the initiatives in ATP-5 was to make the sideboard matter.
Yeah.
A little more. Whereas previously it was I've got the rest of my copies of Belligerence, the rest of my copies of End Hostilities, a Hollow Matter Projector, more anti-Brave stealth stuff, and then 2 flex slots. Yeah, a lock on lasers and 2 flex slots. and you're like, okay, well that sucks that it's that formulaic, right? So now there's a lot more choices, and you have better access to those choices because of Knack, which is a card that is. So if we're looking for predictions for Season 5, my prediction is that Knack will be a one of in 90% of deck lists.
At least, maybe 95, honestly.
Maybe 95. It's a really good card when it's good, and it's like a pretty okay card when it's bad.
Yeah.
So, except against Rung, at which point you board it out.
Yeah. Or if you're playing Seekers, don't play
just
Knack.
board it out.
Don't play Knack if you're playing Seekers.
Do not play Knack and Seekers, because you flip that blank one time, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna drop. This has been great, but thank you.
I've done that once. I was testing Seekers. I played one Knack. I'm like, I can pick this up with one of my characters. Awesome. And and the one time I picked it up in 3 games, I played it, hit a dogfight off the top. I'm like, okay, well, I'm done.
Like, hey, it's been great playing games. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're winning. Like, no, I'm not. I'm conceding. This is shame. It's just a shame concession.
I'm not losing the game, but I'm losing a lot more here, so I need to stop now.
But my mental health got really affected by that Knack, so I'm gonna head out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, don't play blanks with Knack.
Don't play blanks with blanks. Or not too many, at least. Not too many. Like.
I mean, even if you play one, you're gonna flip the one, man. That's the rule, right? Like.
Yeah, it's so true, dude. Like, how many times have you drawn a Handle Blaster, drawn an Improvised Shield? It's gonna be even more flipping a bad card off a Knack. Flipping your Pocket Processor off a Knack. It's awful.
I literally did this the other day. I was playing a basically like a mid-range deck, a super mixed deck, and I had like 10 cards in my scrap, and I was like Knack, and I flipped Soldier's Blaster, and I was like, okay, I'll play a green, and there were no greens.
That's so
in my 10 card,
rough, dude.
And I was like, I'm playing one only green in my entire deck. Literally any other pip plays a card, and a good card.
Yeah.
So it had to be exactly Soldier's Blaster, and I was like, well,
it's gonna do it.
I'll put that back down, and then I'll play this no value Bashing Shield and swing into your guy.
If there's a card that emphasizes and embodies the chaotic nature of the Transformers TCG, it's probably Knack.
Yeah, it's a really fun card. Like in terms of when you play, you're like, all right, like I've got like three plans for like what's going on. Of note, I do advise that with Knack being a thing going on, that people be mindful of their scrap pile. Like when there's a piece of dead time, so your opponent's like considering what to do, like look through your scrap pile, know what's available there, just to save some valuable seconds in terms of like getting the match completed.
It's true. Yeah, and honestly, that might be something even if you don't have Knack in hand, just to kind of do anyway. There's every information you can
know what your outs are.
Yeah, exactly. Know what you might. I do it all the time. Like if I like am looking for like a force field that's like 10 cards left in my deck, I'm looking like there's 2 force fields left. Let's see if I can get it. You're just planning it that couple turns ahead. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably it.
I think so, Richard. This is a good time. Thank you for coming on. And again, I just want to say thank you to the players that played, and congratulations to Frank, to Butter, to Brokebox, and to Christian, wherever he is out there. Congratulations on your first place finishes, everybody, and excited to see what you all cook up with in next event and seeing who does and who finishes how.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Make sure to click that like button and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what deck you're going to play in ATP-5. If you're going to be playing this one-day event, just let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Adios.